The Pope and Young Club wants to welcome you as we rally together to ensure our bow hunting opportunities for today and tomorrow. You've come to the podcast that believes in preserving, protecting, and promoting the passion for bow hunting. Join us as we strive to be the voice of today's bow hunter. This is the Pope and Young Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pope and Young Podcast. I'm Jason Roundsville, joined as always by my co-host Dylan Ray. And we have with us today one of our new corporate partners, just signed up this summer. I mean, it seems like this summer was a long time ago or just not too long ago, but it was actually quite a while. Anyway, we have Thomas Mifsud from Universal Outdoor Products. Welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. And, just the opportunity to be here and hang out with you guys, become, pretty good friends throughout the last few months since we met and started getting involved with Pope and Young. And, it's an adventure. So.
Absolutely. And so we'll just talk a little bit about that. You actually came, we kind of got to know each other at the mountain archery festivals this past summer. And
yes,
just
sir.
Kind of an instant connection, up on the mountain, everybody's having fun. And so, to us, it just seems like a great fit. You came in and we're all excited obviously about bow hunting and archery, and you've got, your company has a ton of great products, some of which are in my garage, much to the chagrin of my Amex card. But anyway, tell us a little bit about, when you started talking to us up on the mountain, what was it that kind of made the connection to where this is a really great fit for us?
Well, I mean, for me, a couple of things was, first off, it was recognizing you because we had met 2 years before that at ATA show on a plane, right? So it was like having that familiar face, kind of not knowing what you really did or what part you guys both played. I hadn't met Dylan yet inside of Pope and Young, but I always knew about Pope and Young, right? Quote unquote, like Pope and Young's archery, get your stuff measured, put it on the wall, get it in the book, great. But I never knew the stuff that you guys taught me about, what Pope and Young does for the archery industry and for the overall health growing into the future, and how you guys went through the rebrand. And I was there at your national event down in Reno afterwards. And it really struck me to a core of being a bow hunter since I was yay tall, since I could shoot a gun, I shot a bow, right? And my first animal I took was with a bow at 13 years old. And so I was just really excited to find out what Pope and Young really stood for. Like, what's the core value and what's inside of it, right? Like, let's take off that fancy, I get to score my deer or whatever I want to score, right, or my elk or whatever it is. But let's take that first layer off and let's see the depth of it. Let's look at the 30 layers or 300 layers below that first layer. And that's what got me excited, is the energy you guys brought, the education, and just knowing that there's more to it than just getting your name.
I'll tell you what I heard, Jason.
Yeah, because that's right. We actually first...
I heard you got him in.
What's that?
I heard getting to know you got him interested. Then when he met me, he was all on board. That's what I heard, at least.
That's what. Actually, I think Thomas flagged me down. We were jumping on a plane, I think Portland down to wherever ATA was. Was that 2 or 3 years ago?
That was 2019.
Yeah, so it was a while back, and then we started talking about you had a great product you had developed at that time, and then now. Now what are some of the things that you carry? I know you have a bunch of different stuff, but I know for me, timing was good because you rep for Baku Bikes and sell bikes, and then they came on as a corporate partner, and so it was kind of a really good. Everything kind of hit all at once, and just seemed to really flow.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, when decided to start up Universal Outdoor Products, just want key component products that people can afford, right? Get discounts or at least have availability to it. And it's just very strategic in how we're doing it. So right now we have just 3 products. We had 11 products going into November. I removed the majority of them because they didn't fit our demographic or our culture, which we're trying to build inside of. I don't want to be a Lancaster Archery or a Badass Outdoor Gear. I'm not putting plugs for those guys, both great companies, but I want to be that select where you come, you know, there's 12 to 15, maybe 15 to 20 products there, and that's it. Like, you're getting stuff that I've used, that I believe in, that I've done my research, and I know the owners of the companies. I know what goes into their culture and their business aspect, not just their product. And so Baku is one of them. I also produce a rack system, which we'll talk about. But the reason I chose to go with Baku, even though I sell my rack to now 13 different e-bike manufacturers, is their company culture, the way it's structured, their quality of bike, their price points, and their customer service. No other bike company out there can hit all 5 of those. And that's when I ended up becoming friends with the owners over 4 years ago. We've been talking, they've been selling my product for an accessory on their bikes, and it just grew from there. So I ended up being the 3rd top dealer within Baku's organization in bike sales last year.
Yeah.
And I do this as a passion part-time. So, you know, you can imagine where it could go.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'd like to think that I helped contribute to that.
Yes, you did. So.
Jason, I think that
it's
I guess got to have some fun.
What Thomas just said is getting to know companies and getting to know businesses. And, you know, I'll tell you, Thomas, it wasn't a hard decision. We spent a day with you there at Mountain Archery Fest, and I remember telling Jason, I'm like, this is the kind of dude we want to work with as a corporate partner. Like, you know, just great relationship and great business mindset and just great relationship value there. And you know, it wasn't a hard decision for Pope and Young to say Thomas is the exact kind of guy that we want to work with.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because it's got to be that mutual feeling, right? You've got to have both sides of it, right? The passion and the drive and the heart for bow hunting and conservation. But then also, when you run a business, you got to have that business sense and that know-how. You know, it's like a teeter-totter. There's got to be a balance there, right? You can't be super heavy on one and not the other, because then it doesn't work in the outdoor industry.
Yeah. Yeah, and we found that, and it's, you know, we have right now a phenomenal lineup of corporate partners. You know, everything from Universal Outdoor Products. We've got Baku, we've got Garmin, you know, we've got Hoyt, Easton. We've got a huge lineup of just the top names out there. And we've had some experiences, even for us, where it just wasn't the right fit. You know, they had different ideas or did things differently. And it's kind of nice for us that we're in a position to where we can get the companies and the people and the organizations on board that really fit well with who we are as an organization right now.
Yeah, and I can see that, and I can hear it in the way you guys talk, the way you present yourself, the amount of energy and time you guys put into the rebrand this last year. You know, the convention was awesome. That was my first Pope and Young convention. It was great. I'll definitely be back. I mean, I drove from Washington to Reno, so obviously I wanted to be there, right?
Yeah, honest, sure. And you found out about that. I think that was like a 10-day turn for you. It was like, hey,
if that. I think you're being generous there.
Might be, because it was one of those things where we're like, hey, you know, here's what we're talking about. If we could get you a Baku tri-course in the hotel, would you want to go? And you're like, absolutely. I don't know how I'm going to do it because I have these other 2 commitments, and then you made it happen. So it was great. And
Thomas, I don't know if I told you before the show,
worked with you on that.
During us setting up for the show, I was riding a bike around, and I rode it back to like our staff area, and they're set.
Surprise.
Yeah, and they're set. Krista, one of our staff members, and I say, Krista, girl, you got to ride this thing. You got to try this. She's like, that's not for me. And I'm like, hop on this. So she took off, and she went around the corner, and she was gone for like an hour. And I'm like, what in the world? And I'm sitting there waiting. I'm like, I want my bike back, you know? I'm not walking anywhere this week. And then all of a sudden, one of our board members comes around on that very bike, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? We're passing my bike around now. What's going on? And Krista comes back around the corner. She looks like a sad little puppy, and she's like, "Listen, I was having so much fun, but one of the staff members of the hotel said we got to put this thing up." And I'm like, "Dang it, Krista! I let you have it for 30 minutes, and I lose all access to it." So we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So how was your bow season this year, Thomas?
Oh, limited to none. So this season was more of a step back. I was getting my kids into archery hunting this year, which you guys, I believe you both met, Eva and Noah, at the Mountain Archery Fest archery shoots. And, both of them got up to their 40 plus pounds here. So we only got to sit a couple of days, though, just because of the weather and just the way things were going. So my concentration in Washington was them for archery. I did spend 3 weeks in Montana, first time hunting Montana. The rut was way late. I went for a week early, and then I went for a week and a half, so not quite 3 weeks towards the end. And they were just starting to rut that going into the second week of October.
Huh.
Like, and September 28th, 6 bulls still walking by themselves, all 6x6s, not herded up. Only found 2 herd bulls with groups of cows. I actually got up on a small group of a spike, 5 cows and 2 calves. I was about 7,800 feet up, and I come up over this ridge, and I could smell them. I knew where they were there, and I kind of snuck around, and I'm standing 15 feet from a spike eating. Doesn't even have any idea I'm there, and I'm just waiting. I'm like, there's got to be a bull in this group, right? And I'm just waiting, and they all kind of congregated and walked around, and no bugles, no bulls. So I was really disappointed, but I did have one experience which was pretty awesome. Is we got on, we sounded like a nice bull, which you never know because it doesn't really make a difference what they sound like, right? I've been able to prove that over the years. But we got this bull. Tristan stayed back. Good friend of mine, Tristan Traval with 6am Outdoors, which I sell his products. But he stayed back and he called. So every time he called that bull with bugle, I'd get closer. So I got to within about 18 yards of him in his bed. And it's super thick. Like I could see through little pockets and I could see him and I could see his rack kind of turn. And so he finally stands up and he comes out and he tries to walk out of the thick stuff and he's banging his rack. He's about a 360 bull. He's a 6x7, just phenomenal bull. Like, I mean, biggest bull I've had an opportunity to even be that close to get a shot on. Tristan thought he was raking a tree because of his horns hitting, trying to get through the brush. Well, he couldn't get through, so he turned and come up this backside of the thicket. So I've got a jack for like 9 feet in front of me, and he's standing behind that jack for me. And I can like feel him breathing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm just sitting there, behind another little tree. I mean, he's going to step out and turn, and his nose is going to be touching the end of my arrow. And he's just sitting there, and then he just kind of goes, and then he turns and walks through the thick stuff and walks down the drainage and walks away. Doesn't respond anymore, nothing. I was like, didn't bust anything. So that was an awesome experience. Like I'm a faithful man too. So I love being out with nature and my Lord. And it's like getting out there and just experiencing it, even though I didn't get to take a shot, was successful for me being within 9 feet of a bull that caliber.
Yeah.
But that was it for my bow hunting.
That's some of when people talk about the intimacy of archery and how you get the extra interactions, that's exactly what they're talking about. Because with the rifle, you could have put one probably through the brush and got that done before any of that ever happened. And here, the entire experience was after when it would have been over with another means of weapon. So how cool to get an experience like that.
Oh, 100%. And that's why I bow hunt. That's why most of us bow hunt, right? We want that experience. We want to know that we're the alpha out there, not for an ego boost, but that we can connect and be just as predatorial as any animal walking the planet. And how do you do that? You archery.
Yeah.
And you take it to the next level like Dylan does with traditional archery, right? Which I'm contemplating on switching to traditional and committing for this whole year for that, but I haven't done it.
I am not. It's the whole trad thing interests me, and I got to share an antelope camp with some trad guys this year, and obviously when you talk to Dylan on the podcast, or just when you talk to Dylan in general, it's something he's into and he enjoys it. I'll tell you what, there is something pretty nice about just having your arrow blow through there and, not have to wonder. At 80 pounds, I have a little better chance of that happening, I think, than if I switch to a recurve.
So, two things happened this year.
Yeah, and
two things happened this year where I thought to myself, like, why didn't I go full bore with it? Because I was bouncing back and forth between compound and recurve this year, and one time I shot a doe with my compound, and she was at like 14 yards, and I come to full draw, and before I shoot this deer, in my mind, because I'd been working all year long with the recurve, and in my mind, before I shot that deer, I thought to myself, I would feel more comfortable right now if I had my recurve. Like, I've put so much time and effort into it.
Really?
I feel better equipped with my recurve than I do my compound. And then the second one, I had a nice buck, and I had a nice buck come in, and he was at like 10 yards. And I just thought to myself, and I sent Jason I showed him a video of the deer, and he's like, dude, I would have shot that in an instant. And I'm like, what stunk was, I thought to myself, I'm like, if I had my recurve, this would be the highlight of my year to shoot this deer. But since I have my compound, it's just not quite there for me yet. And then I thought, like, so for anybody who's considering the switch, like, why do I want to take away the excitement of not shooting one, of shooting one with my recurve because I wanted to hunt with a compound? And it's just, I mean, those were the two things this year where I thought, like, I just need to go full in with this. There is no back and forth, And I'll still hunt with a compound just because I enjoy it. I mean, I really enjoy shooting a compound as well. I just love archery. But those are the two things that happened to me this year where I'm like, yeah, the switch was right for me. And Jason, I got a complete pass through on the deer I shot this year with my recurve, just so you know.
Well, that's good. Very nice. So does that mean next year you're all in? You're a trad guy from now on?
Well, again, it's one of those things where I want to be, but I still love shooting a compound. Like, I love the mechanics of a compound. I love the speed of a compound. Maybe I love shooting a compound more than I love hunting with a compound. But then again, I just trick myself into thinking, like, I need to go hunt with my compound, and then things happen where I'm like, I wish I had my recurve. And so, I don't know, because again, I just love archery. So we'll see, but definitely this year is about 50-50. And no matter what, it will be more on the recurve side this year, 75-25, whatever it ends up being. But it'll certainly be more just because it's so much more fulfilling and so much funner.
Yeah, and see, I hear about that.
It's funner, really.
And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I need to give this a bigger shot. But
so you guys know Lou, right? I don't remember his last name. In Colorado, he come over to you guys' booth. I forget his last name. He's got a bunch of animals in the record book.
I remember who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, Lou. I think it's Hobbs. Lou Hobbs. He's gonna kick my ass when he finds out I forgot his last name. But he's a trad guy, and I went to his house, and I mean, he's got everything: lions, hippos, everything you can believe. Probably similar to yours. He has a lot of SEI records plus a good amount of Pope and Young records. And he asked me. He goes, "Well, you shot trad before?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "But have you committed to it?" I said, "No." He goes, "Then you haven't shot trad." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "When you make the switch and you decide it has to be all in, you have to put your compound, put your guns, put everything else in the safe, lock it, change the code on it, and forget it for a year." And he goes, "You just got to concentrate." Because he said it isn't just a way of shooting, it's a way of hunting, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of life. He goes, the way you move is different because you don't have that, oh, I only have to get to 60 yards. No, you've got to get to 20 yards or whatever it is, right? So he goes, everything changes. Your experience with what's around you changes. You start having better reception of what's going on from, the little branch you might not have worried about carrying a compound or a gun, which now you're going to be like, no, I'm not rubbing that twig. I'm not touching this. I've got to move this way or that way. He said it's just a completely different mindset. I don't know if you've dealt with that or not, Dylan.
No.
Going through, hunting whitetails, and being in the field.
I definitely know what he means, because I've heard people talk about it. I've felt it before, and I think on that scale, it's like if you ever want to shoot one with your recurve, you've got to leave the compound at home. Same with the compound. If you ever want to shoot a deer with a bow, you've got to leave the rifle at home. Like, I understand that mindset, but I told somebody asked me at one point, they said, so are you going 100% trad? And I said, no, because I wanted to start shooting a recurve to be more well-rounded in archery, not to limit myself to one form of archery. And so for me, it's like, I just love the sport of archery. And if I go traditional only, all of a sudden I've cut out all of the fun things about shooting a compound and all of the, I love going out and shooting at 60, 70, 80 yards. I love that. And now I understand you can still shoot distance with a recurve. It wouldn't be the same distance, but you can still shoot long shots with a recurve. But I just love that aspect of archery and stretching the distance of a compound. And so, man, I don't want to block myself off and say I'm 100% this way, because I moved to a recurve and wanted to learn that so I could be more well-rounded, not a one-sided coin. And I'm not saying anybody who shoots recurve only is a one-sided coin. I mean, some of the best hunters that we know only shoot a recurve. But that's just my personal preference, is like, I just want to enjoy the entire sport of archery, so I had to add a recurve into that to enjoy that part of the sport.
Yeah, and I get that, right? That yin and yang kind of push and pull, because like I love shooting, period. Whether I'm shooting trad or I'm shooting compound, and like you said, have like my bow, Jason. I shoot 84 pounds, and so I like knowing I've got that power. I can do what I want with it. But for my own personal skill set to get better in the field, that's the whole reason why I thought about challenging myself this year to go trad only, because it's going to make me a better stalker.
It'll make you a better hunter for sure.
Even though even in my mind, I'm thinking with my compound, I still want to get to that 20 yards. I know I get to 60 yards, I get a clear shot. I'm going to get an itchy trigger finger, and I'm not going to wait till I get closer. With the trad, it's going to force me to be a better hunter in between that 40-yard gap I'm trying to close that I would never attempt to do if I had my
There's also the yearbook.
So it'll be an interesting.
There's also probably 4 years ago where I really started to stretch out distances and get pretty good at shooting distances, out to 120, 130. And I felt really confident at 80, 90 yards. And I would trick myself in the field into shooting that far. Well, on a whitetail, I mean, deer can be 10 yards away before your arrow gets there. I mean, at that distance. And so I made shots, and I'm just like, why did I shoot that shot? Like, I know better than that. And so that was a part of the reason for the switch to me, was like, I want to become I want to understand the animal better. I want to understand the ethics of being in close quarters with them and getting in there, and not just saying, oh, I can shoot at 90 and launch in one. And so that was another part of the reason for me, is wanting to just kind of be more intimate with that animal and take better shots, and a recurve is going to force you to take better shots.
Yeah, that's 100% why I'm looking to get into that. I'm not getting any younger, so I don't want to wait till I'm in my 60s to try it, and then I'm frail and not frail and nimble, but I'm not going to be the way I am right now at 45, right? It's just going to be one of those things. I'd rather learn it now instead of waiting until later and not being able to have that.
Yeah, Dylan's now laughing because he's a youngster, so he's like, yeah.
Yeah, what are you, 23?
He's like, I don't want to wait till I'm old and in my 40s.
Yeah, right.
I think I'm 29. No, 28. 28. I'm 28.
Yeah.
I have to count. I know I'm already to the age where I have to count.
See, that's what happens too, though. Right? When you start shooting trad, your memory goes back to the older days where it's not as good, so you don't know how old you are. And so it's like, hey, I feel younger now,
So are you shooting,
that's part of it,
Thomas,
too.
you shooting a recurve?
I've been debating, right? I shot a recurve years ago, Stelmec.
Samick Sage.
It was a nice 65-pound. Yeah, it was a Samick. I don't know if it was a Sage, but it was a nice bow. I mean, it was, I don't know, like $500, $600, like not a crazy amount for it, but it was a nice shooting bow. I got decent within 30 yards. I mean, I was hitting a pie plate, at 30 yards, which for me was good back then. And I took it on a hog hunt in Georgia, actually. but the hogs were all nocturnal, nothing was moving, so I ended up shooting a handful of them with the AR with night vision, just so I got to shoot something, and then we took the dogs out, and I got to use the knife and stuff, and go through all that, and I've done that several times now, but I was like, yeah, let's try it. I did it for that year, and then I never did anything since, so that's one thing I'm going to probably get around to talking to Dylan about is the Bear recurves and the trad stuff that Bear puts out, because I know they've got a really good product, and it's not, there's some really good custom bows out there I've seen, but it's hard for me to justify spending, $1,500 to $2,000 on a recurve. And so
you got to commit to it.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm definitely, I'm about 95% of the way there to commit to trad. I just got to figure out what I'm going to shoot.
Yeah, that's, I know what you mean, but it's kind of like,
not too long ago,
if you're
we
putting
had
all
Tom
the guns
Plum on.
away.
I think Dylan and you are delayed. Sorry, go ahead.
Not too long ago, we had Tom Plum on, and he talked about selecting a bow, how to find a good bow for a beginner. And so I'll send you a link to that episode.
Yeah, definitely. I'll listen to it for sure.
Yeah, it's nice. Although when you're talking to guys like that, they know so much about it that it's intimidating just to even talk to them, because you're starting from down here and these guys are up in the, and even though they're great and would do whatever they could to help you, it's intimidating because, when you first start out, you don't even know what you don't know. And so it's like,
right.
I don't want to ask stupid questions, then quit asking them, Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? Can't get an answer though if you don't ask, right?
And you're going to learn one way. Might as well not make it the hard way.
Yes. Yeah. Just right off the bat, tell me everything I'm not supposed to do. I'll make that list. I'll memorize it. Then we can talk about what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So if you could chase, so you're one, if you had a trad like bucket list, what would you chase? What would be your top two animals chasing with a trad gear?
First thing would be black bear, spot and stalk. That'd be my first animal. I love bear hunting. I love, the closer I get, the better. Like I want them either growling and snapping at me or not even knowing I'm there until the arrow goes through them. So
did you ever see that video of Clay Newcomb, and he's sitting behind a who's the editor of Bear Hunting Magazine, but he was sitting behind like a blind that he made out of sticks and stuff, and the bear actually comes by and knocks his arrow with his mouth, and then turns and walks off, and he ends up shooting it like 5 yards. Like that is
wow.
That's the most phenomenal footage I've ever seen of a bear hunt. Like it's incredible.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing that one and Tim Wells with his blowgun with that big bear on his bait pile.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that or not, but he shoots like a 400+ pound bear with a blowgun at like 5 feet from the end of his blowgun on this bait pile, 6 feet, and it's just like insane. I was like, that'll be next. First I'll do the trad, then I'll do the blowgun.
Yeah, you better do that while you still have the lungs. Oh man.
Right? I'm like,
yeah. I could pull an 80-pound bow. Yeah. I'm not sure how many pounds I could generate with my lungs.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Like I had some good conversation with Tim over the years. He actually uses one of my products, and I was supposed to hunt with him in Alaska 2 years ago and spear my first black bear with them. And then COVID hit and our hunt got canceled. And so, which hopefully we'll be able to get it set back up next year. But yeah, he tried talking me into it. He goes, well, why don't you just bring the blowgun up too and see if you can get one? I'm like, no, I'll do the spear first. I'm not ready yet to try to do freaking kill a bear with a little ass dart.
Yeah, that's I'm good with the big dart. 30. Did
you ever see the video of him doing baboons with a blowgun?
Yeah, and
those things insane. Are fierce, dude.
Like So, and that's, yeah. Well, and that's one thing too. So when you look at instinct hunters like that, right? That's one thing going back to the trad conversation is I want to bring more of my instinct, my hunter, my predator, my alpha instinct from being in the woods out. And like, you watch him shoot, all his is instinct. 3-finger, Oneida bow, no sights. Everything is instinct from ducks and geese out of the air to a running baboon at 90 yards. It's insane what he's been able to develop inside of his instinctual shooting. I've never worked on that before. And I think trad will help unlock that and develop that. And that's another reason, just to kind of put the icing on the cake.
So it would be interesting because I started off, even with my first compound, I started off just instinctive shooting. I think eventually I went to a sight, but this was pre-rangefinder days. So a sight was just, even then you were just guessing. It's kind of like, well, I think that's 30 yards. And then you'd shoot it and you'd, be over their back. And you're like, oh, nope, looks like it was 25. And,
right.
So I started off that way. So it'd be interesting to see if I went back to that, if any of it's still there. It's a long time ago.
Well, yeah, and that's like shooting the archery courses when they have non-marked yardage with no rangefinder usage, right? Because we have 2 courses by my house where we go through in the competitions, no rangefinder and no marked yardage. So you've gotta be able to identify what your yardage at least. So that's like a portion of it. But then I look at, okay, what if I didn't have my sight? Could I still hit that without my sight? And I don't think I could right now, right? Because I've lost that. I've walked away from it because I got too comfortable in knowing I got a rangefinder and I got my sights and I can shoot a target at 110 yards. So why do I need to think about it? Right? This way, at least I got to start thinking a little bit more and slow myself back down to enjoy the moment of the shot and the drawback. Like I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I love compound shooting. I'm not knocking it. I will always have at least 1 or 2. I think I've got 5 out in the garage right now. But, I will always have them here. My kids will shoot compound, but it's just, I want to better myself. And I do this in all areas of my life. I mean, that's why I do the 4-dimensional business coaching. And that's why I do what I do inside of, my leadership, accountability, and production trainings. So
I'll tell you what I've come to work on is people ask me, what's your effective range? And I just say my backyard. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, in my backyard, I've got 8 3D targets. And they're anywhere from 0 to 32 yards spread out. And that's what I want to become effective at, 32 yards. And that way I know, like if I look at an animal, I can just think, yeah, that's inside my backyard and shoot it. Now, I still carry a rangefinder. I'm not that cool. But really for me, that's just like, because you can easily trick yourself. You see a big deer, you can trick yourself into thinking, yeah, he's inside 32 when he's at 41. Just because you want to shoot him. And so really for me, that's just to make sure, like if they're on that fringe of being too far, that's for me to make sure, okay, they're inside 32. But then once they get inside that 32, I can pretty much just kind of guess where they're at. Like I don't have to range to know if they're at 10 or 15. Like I can pretty much figure that out.
Yep. Yeah, and I definitely will carry a rangefinder for sure. And just to be able to verify and know my comfort zones, especially just starting out with trad, but there's so much technology out there. And I mean, just for the ease of people getting in archery, like we're talking about I look at it as extreme, right? Like long range, I don't think is as extreme as shooting trad. Like I think trad takes more work, more effort than shooting out to 100 yards. I was shooting with 100 yards since I was 15. And it's having that ability and that technology, though, for people to come in and start shooting archery, even if you don't bow hunt, right? This is what a lot of people, especially in this area that I know, they love to target shoot. They just love shooting. They love archery shooting, outdoor courses, indoor courses, but they don't hunt, right? So it's like, it's even there, it goes back to that, okay, you can still enjoy archery and the art of, being an archer and not hunt, but at least educate yourself inside of what conservation is and what we do as bow hunters, and why we still have the land and the animals we have today is because of people like us and the conservation that goes on. and the hunters that are out there.
Nothing wrong with target shooters. We're here to make sure that if you ever think, hey, you know what, I'd like to try hunting, we want to make sure you still have that opportunity available to you.
Yes, 100%. Yep. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So
fun.
So with your
we want to
with your compound, would it be black bear with the compound, or what would your top quarry be for that?
Compound's a brown bear up in Alaska.
Yep.
And so I still haven't been able to do that yet. Like I would love to go to Africa, but I want to wait till my son's 13 and I want us to go together. I don't see myself doing the big 5 just because by the time he's 13, it's probably going to cost me $500,000, and I don't see spending that on on the hunt, you know. But that would be fun. Like I would love to go over there and hunt whatever I could over there, archery. That would, compound and or trad combo. But for North America, 100% brown bear, and then moose after that. I'd like to be able to
what's neat is we just had our last guest was the magazine writer for us, does the adventure bow woman column, Johnny Marie, and she came on. She's from Alaska, and she shot a brown bear with her bow before she ever shot a deer. Imagine that. That's
right.
I know.
Yeah,
awesome. She was talking about that. She's like, I've shot black bears and brown bears, but I'd never been deer hunting before. And it's like you look at that, and it's kind of a coming the other way around the neighborhood to get there.
Yeah, but it's an easy, accessible path for them up there, right? Like every 2 to 4 years, they get a brown bear tag or an inland grizzly tag, either way, depending on where they're at, right? So they can do that. Like I know a guy that runs a fishing outfit out of Yakutat, which is kind of in between Anchorage and Homer or something like that. I forget where it's at. I've been up there twice. I wired 2 of his cabins for him and did some hunting and fishing up there. But his boat guide up there, he's like, yeah, he goes, I get a tag every 3 years for here. And he goes, I get my bear. He goes, last year I got a 10'3", 18-and-a-half-year-old bear, no teeth in it. He goes, the thing was a beast. He goes, I really wanted to do it with the bow, but I was moose hunting. He goes, we got our moose, we got back to shore. And he goes, I look and the sand's still moving in the track. And he goes, so I knew he was close. So he goes, I just walked down the beach. And he goes, I was like, what the heck's going on? And he goes, I pull up my scope and I look into the trees and there's a flutter going on. And he goes, it looked like a hummingbird. And he goes, then I kind of backed off and realized it was only 70 yards away. It was the bear blinking because he had like a twig in his eye looking at him. And so he pulled up and shot him, and then it came out and charged him, and he shot him again. And but like he said, he goes, I can shoot a bear before I can shoot a moose or a deer. He goes, they're just more readily available when you get a tag up here. He goes, it's easy to get them.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you say that.
Yeah, it's one thing to get a tag. It's another thing to get close enough to get a brown bear with a bow. Although the people.
Yeah. And I wouldn't shoot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it without a bow. Like I wouldn't do an inland grizzly or a brown bear with a gun. And I mean, there's very few guides out there that'll take me. Tim Wells, his guide let him spear that grizzly bear 2 years ago out of the tree stand. And he's the only place that you can spear grizzlies. And, he does one every 2 years. And he's like, if you ever want to come up and spear one, he goes, you can come on up. He goes, Tim passed on one that was 30% bigger than the one he got. He should have just got it. It was day 2. And he's like, oh, I don't want it over. And then he finally got his on day 28. So 28 days of sitting in the stand before he got his second opportunity. I was like, that'd be pretty neat to do. But, it's one of those things where it's been my bucket list since I pulled my first bow back and I seen an article in the old Outdoor Life magazines, way back, when me and you were kids. Dylan wasn't even conceived yet. But, and, they had a picture of this guy on the front cover, and he had a Kodiak brown bear on his back. This guy's like 6'3", ex-football player, and the head was as wide as his shoulders. And then I ended up reading that article, and he bow hunted it. Yeah. And it was just like, I'm doing that. Before I die, I'm doing that.
It's when I first started here, it had not, it's going on almost 4 years now, but brown bear with a bow is just not anything that would have made my list. But man, you talk to people and they enjoy it. I mean, it's Chris the other day. That's his thing is he wants to go chase grizzlies with a bow, and the folks that have done it, they just love it. They just really enjoy it. So there's got to be something there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at how fun it is for me to go after black bears, right? So, I mean, you put that next level of intensity, and I could be a bear's bowel movement tomorrow type of thing,
Yeah.
And it puts
Although,
a whole
how
new
big was
twist
that bear
on it.
in was it New Jersey? 800 and some pounds. I mean, a black bear. That's just
yeah. They're just not as aggressive though. It's not like you've got to worry about. I mean, the majority of the bears I've been around, and even working a little bit with Blaine Anthony with the Bear Whisperer back when I was doing the shows and stuff. It's like to get a black bear angry or to come at you to charge, they've either got to be starving, sick, or breeding season, and or with cubs, right? I mean, there's them four key things with any animal for the most part. But I mean, it is hard to get bears to come after you. I had a bear reach its paw in one of my ground blinds before, and I stepped on it and it jumped back and growled, circled the blind, come back and sat at 30 yards, and I had my buddy shoot it. So it's like, but it was just being, investigating. It was just curious. It was like, oh, what's this type of thing? Didn't know we were in there. But then you look at brown bears or grizzlies, I mean, they look at you and you've got a lot larger of a chance of them looking at you as, I'm going to eat you.
They'll kill you just to show that they're the biggest. They'll kill you just to show they're the baddest in the woods.
Yes.
Now, where do you do your black bear hunting? Where do you like to go for that?
So, I mean, here in Washington, it's nice because it's over the counter in the fall. Spring, we just got attacked by anti-hunters and everybody else and had our spring bear revoked. And then we got enough people with Backwoods and Black Bear, I forget their organization, putting out petitions that we got it to get revisited and, re-listened to. And right now, they pulled it back out and gave it back to us. But between the first and second largest population of black bear in the lower 48 usually goes between Wisconsin and Minnesota and Washington. So we're always in first or second, 25 to 28,000 bears that they know of, that they've recorded. And they're like, oh, bear populations are down. It's like, no, you don't allow us to trap. We can't bait. We can't use hounds. So you can't use any of that. We just got electronic calling approved 3 years ago to be able to call them. So 2 years ago, me and my son got Drew spring bear tags, and I actually called 2 bears in within 2 weeks, one for him and then one for me, which was nice. But I love being able to hunt here because it's in my backyard. I mean, honestly, the only real good hunting in Washington, in my mind, is bear hunting. Bear hunting, and that's pretty. When you're looking at, I want good hunting for an animal.
Okay.
Washington, I think of bear. And then I started hunting Montana last year, which was super fun. I seen 12 bears in 2.5 days. Me and Tristan Traval, we both shot a bear. I went there 2 days before him, and then when he got there, I'm like, I already got bears picked out. I was like, you can just pick which one you want. I know where they're going to be. I've already found them. And, we got 2 bears within 5.5 hours.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. The crazy mountains over there are something else.
Yeah, I know you hear a lot of when you hear black bear hunting. I've seen a lot of TV shows and whatnot, like on British Columbia, and so it makes sense with Washington being right under that that they'd have some good bear hunting. I know. I'm just south of there in Oregon, and there's
right now
bears around, but man, it's they hang out where you don't see them much. I mean, they're in the thick stuff that you just good luck.
Right now, your top 5 states are Wisconsin, Washington, Oregon, and Maine, and Idaho.
Yeah, I was gonna say Maine should be there too. So Oregon, I want to hunt. I want to bear hunt. So I was talking to one of your members, he's gonna want to kick me in the ass too because I forgot his name. I'm drawing a blank. Yes. So he showed me a bunch of his pictures. He goes, "You want to come down? Come down. Let's hunt." And I mean, he's got some toads. I mean, some of the pictures that I've seen of the bears that they've been able to pull out of Oregon. I mean, just absolute, they're great bears. I mean, amazing.
Must be
bears.
Nice because me and Jason asked him and he said no.
Yeah.
So
he says bear hunting. I don't know. I think there's bears around. I don't know who'd hunt them.
There's only 9 states in the lower 48 that do not contain bears, and I live in one of them. So that sucks because I love bears.
Oh. What state do you live in again?
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah, they're just hiding.
There's nowhere for them to hide. It's all flat. They just be laying in corn. But
it's all corn. They're hiding in the corn, just like they do in North Carolina. They just sit and lay in the corn and eat all day and sleep all night.
I don't know what in the wild doesn't like corn. Everything eats corn.
Right? And that's one thing, like, you get back over to the East Coast, right? East Coast, people don't realize, unless they start looking into it, produce huge bears. Absolutely just mammoth bears. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, even South Carolina, Jersey. Yeah, I mean, New Jersey, New York. I mean, that pocket right there produces the world records are always out of that pocket. Your 550 to 850 pound bears come from that pocket. And from what I've been told through biologists and stuff, a lot of those areas, they don't fully hibernate. Kind of like here on the peninsula, because we have the rainforest. So in the area I'm at, it doesn't freeze. Like the biggest bear I've shot to date, I literally shot 45 minutes from my house on a small little mountain they called in between the residential stuff. And I just happened to be out scouting for elk because it kind of connects up into the Cascades up to Rainier. And I come across the tracks, put a trail camera up, figured out she was in there, and I just went and I sat for 4 days every day. And she come out at 1:30, and I shot her with my bow at 17 yards, and she was 347 pounds and a 16th of an inch off of Pope and Young.
See that story right there that you just told me?
And it was a cell that was hanging.
I hear those stories all the time, and I'm like, 17 yards. You could have done it with a recurve,
Yeah.
I mean, we there you go.
Yeah, it blew right through her, stuck in the tree, and she's got a big old V chest, like gorgeous, like a tricolor, like she's got like red and brown tints through her black fur. I mean, just gorgeous bear, and hanging weight gutted at 347 for a sow, and being right there from 18 inches. I mean, that was a big sow. So
that's cool. Yeah, I didn't. I knew we had bears here. I didn't realize we'd be in the top 5 in Oregon. Maybe.
Yeah, no, Oregon's got phenomenal bear hunting, but it's all draw. So your spring and your fall is all draw down there. At least it used to be.
Fall's over the counter
anymore.
Spring is draw. Yeah.
Is it?
Okay. Fall's over the counter. But, you hear a lot of people that bear hunting here. It's almost a lot of incidental take is what you hear of more than anything. It's, somebody's out, looking for a deer, sees a bear, shoots it with a rifle or whatever. I just don't hear. Yeah, you just don't hear that much about it versus, when you think of bear hunting, you think of Wisconsin, you think of, the Maine bear hunt's a big deal. So you hear about those way more so than here.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like you got people that aren't actual bear hunters, right? Yes, if the opportunity comes up, yes, they'll take it. They'll have a bear tag. Tristan, not a bear hunter. I have no urge to go bear hunting. He went up to Alaska, shot his first bear, spot and stalk on the coast with his bow, and he goes, that was pretty cool. He goes, I'll get a tag and hunt with you in Montana. So then we went out. Then he got 2 bears, one in Alaska, one in Montana, within 3 weeks. And he's like, and I'm like, so what do you think? He goes, I would spring bear hunt for sure. He goes, but I'm not going to fall bear hunt. And he goes, because I'm not going to give up any of my deer and elk time for a bear. He goes, I just don't like it that much, right? And for me, it's not about giving up the time. It's about segregating or splitting up your time and framing it out so it works for you. Because like here in Washington, our bear season starts August 1st in the fall. You got a whole month before deer season and elk season, same as in Oregon, I believe, because deer and elk start beginning of September. And so you got a whole month of bear hunting first. It's like, if I can be out hunting, I don't care what it is. I'm going to get out, right? I'm going to grab my bow. I'm going to grab my gear. If the kids go with me or not go with me, I'm going to go disappear for a day or 3 days or whatever it is. And I'm going to go, try to get
just
something.
one more opportunity to get out in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially springtime. Like I love turkey hunting. I guided for 10 years, 30 plus people a year, and that was great. But like, I always told my turkey hunters, I'm like, apply for a spring bear tag. If you get it, I can set you up in a spot to glass where I know there's bears. Or a lot of times I'll call bears into the turkey set. Like I had one of my assistants, he was a kid, 19, he's leaning up against a tree sleeping, and I've got it on video. I have to find the clip somewhere. That was about 8 years ago. But I had this chocolate bear I had spotted that comes up and stands up and grabs the tree like this, and he's looking out at our turkey decoys, and his head's like 2 feet below the paws, sleeping up against the tree like this. And I'm videoing it. Obviously, I wouldn't let anything happen to him. I mean, I was ready to scare the bear or whatever, but that bear got down, kind of walked over, walked out, sniffed our decoys, turned, walked back in, and went out, but nobody had a bear tag. So afterwards, I showed him the video, and he's like, "You son of a! How could you let that bear get that close to me?" I'm like, he wasn't gonna eat shit. Don't worry.
What a neat. Yeah, I put that on my screensaver.
Yeah.
This bear kind of hovering over. Yeah, that'd be all right.
Right. Yeah. No, it was neat. It was a really, really good experience. Like I've had so many close calls and encounters with clients and with myself and bears that it's one of those experiences you don't get, like hearing them chuff, hearing them chomp, hearing their growls, their breathing, it's like, those are things that even listening to it on the screen or on your phone, it's not the same. Like it makes, even if you're comfortable in it, it still gives you goosebumps and makes your hair stand up. You're just like, oh, I mean, some people are like, and they scares the crap out of them, but like it excites me. It's
what are the odds? What kind of odds do you have on your spring seasons up there?
I've been 100% since I moved here almost 15 years ago.
And then how about for the draw though? How about for the draw?
So, I know the area. So your draw is about 4 years, 3 to 4 years, depending. I've seen it go 5, 6 years, but never over 6 years. And it depends on what they do with the tags. I mean, like they've been giving out about 687 spring tags. There's only about 5 units you can hunt in the state with the spring tag, and average kill rate is 103 to 127 bears, and that's it, because it's all spot and stalk or calling. Most people don't even realize you can call, or they don't know how to call. I use, not throwing out any names there, but I use a Fox Pro. I set it up at 100 yards, and the bear normally will circle it. So I always hope for the bear to circle on the inside. So for my kids, they use rifles still right now, but I always try to get them to where they'll circle, and sometimes I'll even use a fawn decoy, because I always do fawn in distress. Fawn in distress works in the springtime 100% better than any other call for black bears that I've found in the Northwest anyways. And so, I mean, it pulls the bears out. Whew. One morning I had 7 bears come into it. And so, I mean, you can, if there's bears in the area and you start calling, they're going to come in the springtime. They're hungry. They're aggressive. They want to eat. They're chomping, they're slobbering, they're foaming. Like they're excited that there's a meal in front of them. Yeah.
Yes.
But you got to get a tag, right? In the fall time, you can still call in the fall time, but they're not as aggressive. You'll get, like the day I got 7 bears, that same area in the fall time. If I get 1, maybe 2 bears during the day to come in, I'm doing pretty good, because there's so much foliage out there with the berries starting to pop and everything else. I mean, they're not that aggressive because they've been able to feed.
So when you're calling bears, is it
that, and they want to maintain as much energy as they can. They don't want to exert it to go get food. So if they're laying in berries to eat, they don't want to give up energy to go get a fawn, because they're trying to hold on to as much of that as they can.
Yeah, they're lazy. Yeah,
So
black
are
bears are
you
lazy when it comes to
you
fall
like
time.
making a set like you do looking for turkeys where you're, hiking a ridge, setting up, calling for a while, and then what do you give it, an hour, then move on, or? Okay.
Yeah, I usually with bears, I like to do 2 hours. So it's a little bit longer. I mean, you'll hear people say no, yeah, you'll hear people say 35, 40 minutes. The thing with bears is normally if your set's here, if that bear is in a cone about 45 degrees out from either direction, he will turn and come in. If he's past that 45 degrees, if he's 90 degrees out from you, 8 out of 10 times, he's not even going to give you the time of day. He's going to stay on his path and he's just going to keep walking to where he's walking. So they've got to kind of be in that cone shape of where you're calling from. So that's why I like to sit for about 2 hours, because they'll go out and wander around, and at some point they might come into that cone, and now you're into somewhat of the direction they're going. So now they're going to continue to go that way because they're in their biological connection, they're going that way anyways,
Okay.
and now they got the potential of food. And so that's what I found with my experience. I mean, you'll find all different types of verbiage and experience. Like, even with Janet Waller, she's a big bear hunter. Trying to get on a spot to go with her and John over in Montana either this year or next year. Like, I mean, she is a true definition of a bear hunter. She will bear hunt before she elk hunts or deer hunts or anything else. Like she fully enjoys bear hunting, and she's got some amazing bears over in Idaho and Montana, Wyoming, and but same thing. I mean, it's a lot of it's spot and stalk, right? You find them and you go after them. Not many people call, and I tell people if you're hunting in the spring, you need to call. 100%. If you know there's bear in the area, you find sign, set up and call.
Well, if I draw a tag this year, I may have to give you a call. So, yeah, that's
no, I'll come down and hunt with you.
That's interesting. I had a tag last spring season, and then it just things with everything we had going on with COVID and with the rebrand, I just didn't get as much time out as I would have liked. But might have to do that. Might have to try that again.
Yeah, I would definitely put in it. I mean, you got a good asset on your team too, so I'd be poking at him a little bit more, poke at the bear, get him to give you some information. But you draw that tag, and you need somebody to come down. I mean, as long as I have the time available, I mean, I'm always up for coming and assisting. Like, I loved guiding when I guided for the 10 years I did, because most of the people I guided, were either new hunters, were kids, or vets or disabled vets. There was a lot of people paying for other people to come with me, and then corporate guys that the only time they get to hunt is when a trip gets paid for them. So they're not technically, they don't classify themselves as hunters, but they get to come out and have the experience, not like the rifle camps like my dad would go to with his buddy, where they just sat and drank for 3 days and maybe hunted for 3 hours, right? It's like, no, I actually teach people about conservation. I take them out, teach them how to hunt the animals, why we do certain things, why the setup. So they go back educated and not, I'm kind of going off on a different path here, but it sparks the flame, right? They came there with the idea is I'm not a hunter, but I'm here to hunt. And they leave, I am a hunter and I want to start hunting. So I love that aspect. So anytime I get to go with anybody, it's just, for me,
it's got my mind thinking. So. All of a sudden, there's definitely thinking about opportunities coming up. So I like it. Well, I'll tell you what, Thomas, one of the things that we ask every guest on this show is when you find yourself in the backwoods up on the mountain, what is one piece of gear, maybe a non-traditional type of piece of gear, that you find yourself taking along and not wanting to be without?
So, and this is going to sound like a plug, but it's not. But it's honestly, since I've got into the big mountains, because I'm originally from the Midwest in Michigan. So back there, it just freaking walk for a day, you're going to find a farm or something, right? But being in the mountains, going on solo hunts, going by myself, disappearing, no communication for 4 to 6 days at a time. One of the biggest things I found that's been a benefit Well, there's two things really. One thing is something to light a fire. So like I just started using pyro putty this last 2 years with their igniters and stuff. That's great to have, but is the a tarp, a 6 a.m. tarp to be able to build a shelter. That's just for me. You know, you got to stay dry and you got to stay warm. I mean, those are the two key things to stay alive, right? And so if I could have some type of a tarp in my pack, no matter what, to where I know I can build some type of a temporary shelter to keep myself protected, and then with some way to be able to create a fire. I mean, those are the key things. And then when it comes, you know, that's more survival, right? But when it comes to the actual hunt, my
Now,
binos, like I gotta have the binos.
yeah.
Like
Now,
if
have
I
you
don't have a set of
seen
binos, I feel
the
lost.
new? I don't know if the pictures have even made it out yet, but Pyro Putty has a brand new Pope and Young bow hunters blend. So that's I'm not sure.
No, I have not seen
Dylan, do we
that
know
yet.
when that's coming
That's
out?
pretty cool.
That is awesome.
What's that?
We do. I mean, we have it. We're ready. It's at the store, or it's at the office there in Chatfield. Man, we just got so busy with show season that we haven't really talked about pushing it out yet. So,
all right. So should we?
Yeah, and that's another company I have a follow up call with because we're going to be carrying, at least per the conversation that at MAF at Mountain Archery Festival, we're going to carry the Pyro Putty products on our website. That's going to be another company I add this year.
No, that's great. We're excited to have them on board, and like I say, we're to the point now where we kind of get to pick and choose who our corporate partners are going to be and who we want to work with, and what a neat position to be in to where we can have it that way. So just
well, and you want it that way. You know, one of the biggest things I find businesses lose out on, and that's one of the things that I coach inside of my platform, is being able to choose your customers, your clients, or what you're trying to expand into with your company, no matter what you're doing, right? Like from an outdoor company to where you could be like me selling, you know, somebody else's product plus my own product that I produce, and or you know, being in the business to where maybe you do marketing for companies, maybe you do, you know, the promotion part, maybe you run events, or maybe you run the company overall, kind of like your seat, Jason, where your hands are in multiple things, you know, and having that opportunity to choose. And that's when you bring the value to the table and you bring everything inside of your core foundation. That's what you get. You don't have to start chasing people because the right people will come to you, but you have to have that culture and that foundation. Otherwise, you don't get to choose. You get whatever comes available and you take it because you're in survival mode, not in prosperity mindset.
Yeah, things are going good, and it's exciting. You know, you make a list of who you'd like to work with, you know, if you could, and then all of a sudden you start looking at your list of who you'd work with that you could, and then that list matches up with who you're actually working with. It's pretty exciting. So, yeah.
No, I love that. And that's just going to grow and expand because it's just going to make
we're
you
also
guys more
trying
valuable
to,
in the future.
you know, hopefully you've realized this. We're trying to emphasize the partner in the corporate partner program. You know, where it's what can we do for you, not just gimme. So.
Well, and that's a different, you know, structure from 90% of the other companies out there that all want everything in the world, but they're not willing to give everything back. And then you see the type of partners they're left with, or the type of, you know, of what they look like to the public eye, because you can see that it's made up of a bunch of broken pieces. You know, it's not a nicely put together piece of artwork like what Pope and Young's turning into, and I think you guys are shaping it up very quickly with the new brand and stuff, and the way you're picking.
So, well, I'll tell you what, Thomas, we appreciate you being on board with us as a corporate partner, and thanks for all you're doing for bow hunting and for Pope and Young out there, and taking some time to visit with us today, man. Always a great opportunity to get to know somebody a little bit better.
No, I appreciate that. And if I can
bet.
put one more thing in here, if you guys don't mind, you can always edit it or cut it out. But like Mountain Archery Fest is coming up, registration's coming up February 4th is going to open. We're a platinum sponsor with them. They actually just hired me on for business coaching and facilitating the executive side of it for this next 2 years to be able to help them grow and expand into different levels, and just to be able to take what they've already built and double down on it, which has been pretty awesome. And one of the things that I wanted people to realize too with the Universal Outdoor Products is it's a place to buy products, but it's also, you can reach me there if you're looking for assistance in your outdoor company, because I can give you a different perspective and different mindset. I've invested the last 5 years, and not to say numbers, but over 350K into my own development coaching platform to be able to help these outdoor industries and companies, because I see a lot of them struggle. And when I can do, multiple, 5 and 6 digit months in a company that I'm just part-time in the outdoor industry, and I only do it here and there, it's not full-time, and I watch these full-time businesses struggle. They need help and they don't know where to turn or where to go. They can come to Pope and Young and ask you guys, say, hey, we're having problems inside of our business, or how do we expand, or we're having issues with our marketing, can we get on the phone with Dylan or whatever. Having companies that are willing to share that, or at least say, hey, you should go and look at hiring somebody to come on and give yourself a boost. I think that's really ideal in this world, especially now this last 2 years with everything going virtual. Like, I mean, we're virtual right now, right? And a lot of people miss that boat. Like, I've had my best 2 years because I was virtual before all this happened. And so, and then when I talk to people at like archery events and stuff, and I sit there and I watch them change. Like, I talked to an owner of a company for about 3 hours, and within 2 days, he cut off his 3 year and put his 3 year target and goal into 1 year, to where he's doing full time his product now, and he's not waiting the extra 2 years, and he took the step, and he's making 3 times what he was before, because we were able to outline a different path and plan, and I worked with him over a few months. So it's like, people got to not be afraid or stuck in what they can't control, and they need to be able to come to executives like yourself, marketing masterminds like Dylan, and let's make this work. It's a $50 billion industry, the hunting industry, a year, right? I mean, people don't realize, like, that's small in the gist of things. When you look at YouTube, where they bring in $168 billion a week in advertising dollars, right? $50 billion is small, but as an outdoor company, team up with people like Pope and Young, team up with other groups that are doing
like
stuff,
Mountain Archery
not
Fest.
just that have big
we've
names,
been working with them since the very beginning, and Brandon Waddell and his team over there, they're talking about partners. I mean, they're really good partners. We run the pint nights there. We're looking at doing some regional style events with them this year up on the mountains. And, that's part of our platform. When we talk about promoting bow hunting, that's part of how we want to do it, is we want to get people out and let them see the Pope and Young World Record Course at the Mountain Archery Fest. That's a neat opportunity. So,
yeah. Well, and it's huge, and that's one thing. I'm gonna end up making this extend, but that's the thing I was talking to a couple of your board members about at the convention, right? It's like, you've got, and I'm not picking on Pope and Young, but just in general, you got a lot of this old mindset, right? People are stuck in the old ways of doing things, and they don't realize a $5,000 marketing budget should be for a month, not for a year, right? Setting up different partners needs to be, and stuff that can grow and expand. Like, me and Brandon have had several conversations on how he's going to lay this out this year, and where he's going, the new media deck, everything else, registration. Like, I helped their team walk through all that, and being able to expand and expose Pope and Young more, that's going to be a place to where it would be great to sit down, because what you guys have done, what I seen you guys did last year was great, right? And I pitched into a lot of it. I've donated a couple guided hunts to some of them, and I did some other things inside of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, there's so much more room for expansion, that the outdoor industry is 5 to 7 years behind every other industry inside of marketing and reach and communication and branding, which you guys took a big initiative and a step this year, which was the start to a new core foundation for Pope and Young, which is awesome. And more companies need to do that. Even the small companies that go to those archery events, right? They don't have the connection inside of what they should be doing. They're trapped inside of what they've been told they had to do.
Yeah.
Right. And there's
Well,
a big difference in between those two ways.
That's a trap that's easy to get sucked into because you do what you have to do, not what you want to do. And so.
And before you know it, 3 years go by and you're like, ah, shit, I'm still in the same spot. Yeah, you made a little bit of money. Your company hasn't grown. You're still working way too many hours. You don't own your life. You actually created a job for yourself. You don't actually technically own a business. So now what? It's like, well, now we start from scratch. It's like, scrape off what you think you want to do, figure out what works and what doesn't work. Get rid of what doesn't work. Let's start doubling down on what does.
Once again, thanks so much for being here with us. Always a pleasure to visit with you. And like I said, thanks for all you're doing for bow hunting and for Pope and Young, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And hopefully Dylan can put my contact information if everybody wants to go to the website or email me. It'll be in the information section.
Sir.
But at the end of the day, this is just awesome. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and be a long gentleman like yourself and lead in the forefront into where bow hunting's going.
Yeah,
and to be able
absolutely. And if you do need to get a hold of Thomas, we've got Universal Outdoor Products. We have their link on our websites. Check out popeyoung.org and you can get right to Thomas. So, hey, thanks again for being here. Have a great day.
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks again too, Dylan and Jason.